Universal Analytics was designed for a much different digital time, and it was built around just website tracking. It's no longer really fit for purpose from an architecture perspective for what modern digital marketers want to do. So they're completely rebuilding it from scratch to allow for website tracking, but also many other types of tracking. And that needs new data infrastructure, new tools, new metrics. And so it was easier to do it from scratch rather than evolving the current tool. So there's three key dates or date types. One is that July of 2023 is when Universal Analytics will be sunset in terms of on-site analytics. So the second is that because of that, we're already past the time frame for when you should have had GA4 installed in order to have year-over-year reporting starting in July 2023. So basically, as soon as you can get that set up now, the faster you'll have year-over-year in GA4. And the third is that 6 months after July, or maybe a little later, depending on your contract with Google, but around there is when the data will all be deleted. So you will need to make sure that you have backups and reporting on that if you want to be able to look historically. So there's three main things you can do. One, most obvious, is install GA4 and start working with it. Second is, instead of trying to just purely port over what you've done in the past to GA4, really take a look at the new architecture, at the event-driven architecture in GA4, and do an exercise of figuring out how to best take advantage of that for your goals, because it's a totally different way of looking at it. And then third, make sure that you have historical backups so that even though you won't be able to compare one-to-one with the past, so that you can actually look back and get an understanding of how you were doing before. So there's a couple main things. The architecture of tracking is different than before because it's event-based. So that's definitely a bit of a learning curve. Related, the UI has been refreshed a lot, so a lot of the reports that you are used to seeing will not be the same, so you will need to adapt to new reporting, adapt to new layouts, and within that, some of the metrics that you may be used to in the past are either no longer there or they have been changed. For example, bounce rate has gone away, and now we have a set of engagement metrics. The first benefit of switching to GA4 is that you don't really have a choice. Google is sunsetting Universal Analytics, so you kind of have to do it. That said, there are benefits to it over UA. First being some much more flexible tracking infrastructure. So because it's event-driven, it makes it easier to track things like mobile apps and videos and all sorts of stuff that was more difficult to do under UA. And finally, there's a bunch of new features that make the measurement more powerful. So there's new predictive features, things like you'd be able to predict conversions, etc., that weren't in Universal Analytics, or you had to build it custom. And a lot of that is in there out of the box now. So there's just a more powerful toolkit for creating more effective marketing campaigns. So the biggest difference is the new data model. So it's event-driven now, and there's also custom event types that you can look, like video views, file downloads, things like that. And there's way more event parameters that you can pass now. So there's a lot more flexibility, a lot of customizability that you can take advantage of. The second thing is there's new metrics, and so the big one is you have engagement metrics instead of bounce rates. So really understanding what those engagement metrics mean is important, but we also do think that it's actually a better way of looking at it. And finally, you have predictive metrics. So this is just the beginning of what Google is going to do with this, but you have metrics that can help you predict actions like conversion rates, add to cart, and these are all things that give you new tools to make sure that your campaigns are more effective. Our approach has three main parts. One is dual tagging. that means setting up GA4 in parallel with UA so that you can see what the differences are. Second is historical backups, so making sure that you will be able to access all your Universal Analytics data even after Google sunsets it. And then third is a slow transition. So making sure that we're not just switching you over right away without training on the new interface, training on the new metrics, but really helping you make that transition so that once you do go to fully GA4, you feel comfortable and confident in the metrics and also how that's driving your marketing campaigns.